Hello, everyone. My name is Keith.
My name is Max.
And my name is Mike.
And today we are going to do a session breakdown of our song The Weight with the Mike Ramirez, the guy who engineered our entire EP. So, let's get into it. Now, the first thing when it comes to engineering a band is, what's your process, Mike?
Well, when it comes to engineering a band, I got to make sure to know what kind of genre I'm getting myself into, first and foremost. I mean, it seems like kind of like an obvious question to ask yourself, but really it's important. You got to talk with the artist, see what their goals are, what they're striving to sound like, see if you can figure out a way to make them sound the way they're envisioning. And I think that's what we did. I came here and we talked about your songs, showed me the demos, kind of went through everything pretty much. And then I had some thoughts, and I started imagining, like, okay, what would I need to do to make this sound the way that it needs to sound? And that's the original thing we did.
Yeah, I think we had pretty thorough demos when we went to you, if I recall correctly. But we also sent you like some reference tracks of like, here's kind of vaguely what we would want to sound like.
Right. I
which
think
was kind of just, here's a song that sounds big.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that was the big, no pun intended there, but that was the goal from what I remember you telling me, was you wanted to sound huge. It needs to be like so big.
The biggest wall of sound.
And I think we nailed it with this EP.
I think we got pretty huge.
I think it's pretty big, and you'll hear it, like all those synths and the vocals and everything just is like coming at you pretty intense. So yeah, so that's what I would do for engineering. So
before we get into it, for those of you listening, thank you for tuning in, for one. And two, if you haven't given our song The Weight a listen, I would recommend listening through the track first and then coming back to this, so that way you can hear us break down all of the individual instruments and synths. So that way you have a good idea of what the track sounds like altogether. But yeah, what do you want to start with? What instrument do you want to start with, Mike? Or just start from the beginning?
Let's just start from the beginning, and we'll go through the verse with all the instruments just to hear what it all sounds like, and then we'll dive into like from the beginning, I suppose. Sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
The intro,
so the
and
intro.
First verse.
Right. So starting off, we have those strings, those pizzicato strings in the very beginning. Let's see if we can find those.
And those pizzicato strings, the reason they sound so janky is because that was literally me just recording that on my own. They're not to grid. They haven't been quantized. They're just loose and a mess.
Also, did you record those on that MIDI keyboard?
Yeah.
It's like the keys are like, half the size of normal keys.
Yeah, whatever. And you have to like hit down real hard on those keys. Yeah. Because that one is the only keyboard that fits on my desk.
Well, I mean, I like the way it sounds. You know, yeah, I don't think it matters if it's on the grid or not.
Yeah, as long as we take like about 16 measures to get to the next thing, it's fine.
Yeah, I honestly think you playing it is adding some life to it. You know, like if it was on the grid, I don't think it would have been as special of a part. It would have just been very vertical, and you know, it would have worked. But I feel like there's definitely some spice into this. You know,
Right.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark too. I mean, come on, it's close enough.
So I didn't do a whole lot for this, honestly. For like a lot of synth stuff, I don't really do a whole lot of compression, just because they're already a really heavily compressed sample. Usually, like as some people in a recording studio in some other country, like in Europe or something like that, that already had these, you know, instrument players come in and they recorded it all and it got it all mixed and perfect before it was even sent to us. So I just do a little bit of EQ to make it fit in the mix, you know. But right here, Fab Filter, just a little bit of a cut right here for low mids. This is what it sounds like without.
Well,
I mean, it still sounds fine without it, but
Sounds better with the EQ.
I think
For sure.
that there's definitely a little bit too much information in this region of the EQ, and just adding this little cut here.
Yeah, it makes it sound a lot more clear.
Damn, dude, you nailed it right off the bat.
So just using my ears there to try to find that. And then let's see what we got next is that gnarly. The intro bass. What did you use for that, Keith?
That was a mix between a brass section synth and then just a regular, I don't know, Sawway synth. Yeah, just the two of them mixed together.
Yeah, it's thick, super thick, very,
Oh yeah.
very gritty. So I went through and I did similar type of EQing for that. Let's see. Well, these are a little different, but for this first track, that's without it. This is with it. Maybe. It's subtle, but there's a little tiny frequency that pokes out right here.
You want to solo it?
I'll do that. That's, you hear it, right?
Yeah.
So that little frequency was bugging me. I heard it, and then trying to fit in the mix, I felt like, well, we don't really need that frequency there, so I'm just gonna kill it. All right, and then I think I added a little bit of limiting because it just is a little bit to make it a little bit more forward, because Keith wanted this thing to really hit you in the face when it first comes to your ears, right?
Does that make it louder? This might be a stupid question.
It's yes, it does, but kind of also not really. It's more like bringing it forward, like closer to you. It does like create some increase in level, but it's also squashing the dynamic level as well. So when you have it squashed, you can have the sound feel like it's coming closer to you.
Interesting.
And that's what that little bit of limiting does for this. It doesn't really make it a whole lot louder. It just feels like it's more present, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And then I guess we should go on to the spoken vocals.
Sure.
Keith's beautiful voice. I think Keith really does have a unique sounding voice.
Unfortunately, yes.
So we recorded Keith through a Perlman church mic, which is a tube condenser. It's like one of those really expensive looking ones, right? And then that was through a John Hardy preamp going through a distressor. And I believe I recorded him pretty high through the distressor. As you can see through these sound waves right here, this is the compressed signal before I even did more compression. And I mean, I just like the way that the distressor sounds. It adds a lot of color when you compress the vocals coming in, and I prefer it, definitely. It gets me closer to where I want to be, so it gets me in the ballpark. And here's what that sounds like.
Bound by nature, now eternal, on my shoulders made to hold my empire fallen away, head in my hands, and everyone knows there's no other place to go. So,
that is just like a long chain, as you can see here. So right off the bat, going into this CLA 1176, which is a really fast compressor, and this is being used to grab the initial hard sounds that come out, and it reduces them.
Bound by nature, now eternal, on my
it's hitting it pretty quick, right?
Right.
Clamping right down on it. Without.
So you compressed it when we recorded it with the distressor.
Yeah.
Then you compressed it even more in the Pro Tools session.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you slammed this thing.
You didn't even realize how much compression was. Well, I squashed it, essentially, is what I did.
Yeah.
You know? And a lot of people will say, oh, you don't want to over compress. You know, it's just bad. And I think it's all a matter of preference and a matter of taste, because with everything in the mix and with all my effects that I add, it still is creating that sense of space and that sense of being further away from you as well. So it's kind of like a balance between both. I just feel like when you're going in compression, it's adding that certain character, that sound that you wouldn't get without it, you know? And I like the color of it. So, I mean, this is, I think there's one more. Let's see. Yep. This is Keith's vocal completely unprocessed.
Bound by nature, now eternal, on my shoulders made to hold my...
It already sounds good as is, right? But just doing these little extra moves I did here really helps, because like they said, they wanted this huge wall of sound, and I guarantee that if I didn't add any of this, Keith would be completely lost and baried in the mix amongst the massive army of synthesizers and strings. So this is with that 76. Oops.
Bound by nature, now eternal,
Which brings it a little more forward. Then we have some EQ.
bound by nature, now eternal, on my shoulder.
Let me turn them up a little bit more.
Bound by nature now.
Oh, we have some automation on here. Never mind. Whatever. I'll turn them up from the plugin.
Bound by nature, now eternal.
So you hear a little bit of a difference there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So basically, with Keith's voice, he's got a lot of tone, especially in the lower area. But I feel like that could make the vocal a little intelligible, especially with everything he's getting piled on top. And I really want his vocal to kind of cut through all of that other sound that's happening. So I put a high pass filter on this just to cancel out some of that mud. And then lower mids, especially with Keith's voice, just to tame it a little bit more. another area around like what's 747, and then more upper high mids, just for a little bit of this like kind of honky sound.
Bound by
Like that's the area with like a talk box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then right here, a little bit of more of presence and sibilance by boosting in this area around like 7K. And then also this little slope right here helps to add more air.
That's right.
So, I mean, just little moves like that. I mean, as you can see, I'm not doing too much. It's only like, what, maybe 4 dBs, not even negative 3.68 dBs of reduction. And then like almost 2 dBs of boost there.
Yeah. So far we've hit the intro into the first verse, which is just 3 layers, which is just vocals, the bass synth, and then actually 4 layers. Then we have a brass pad come in, but that leads us into the first chorus. So let's jump into that.
Yeah, let's do that because we can go on forever just on this vocal chain, and I could talk your heads off. But yeah, first chorus.
So it's a different vocal chain for the first chorus?
Yes, it is.
Okay, interesting.
Unless you want to talk about that. I mean,
Let's just play it first. Let's hear it, and then
All right.
we'll go back to it.
Okay.
Let's start with the synths. Let's just go through and solo some of the synths. We don't have to break them down like through EQ and compression, but let's just hear all what's going on.
Okay, cool. Let's see. We got these from the top.
Oh yeah, the high-end pizzicato strings.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Is there a synth in there too?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. What's below that?
We never use that. That's
Oh
something
yeah,
that-
I forgot. Yeah, we canceled that out.
Yeah, there was a lot of sounds that we had, and as you
Yeah.
can see, these are all bounced stereo tracks. So I think actually we had a bit of a process with that too, when we would try to go through this, and then I mean, how many tracks did you guys initially have?
Oh, we had a lot, but that was a huge part of it. Is we had a lot of tracks going into this, but then at the end we probably cut at least half of them because there was just not a need. They were taking up frequencies that weren't all that important. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were taking up important real estate in the frequencies, but the synths themselves weren't that important to the thickening of the sound.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, go through the ones that are there.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, yeah.
That's a cool one.
And that is just a Logic. That's just free in Logic right there.
Yeah. What did you use for that from Logic?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just called like Church Choir or something. A lot of the sounds that we used on this EP are literally stock Logic plugins. You can make things sound really cool just by blending them together. You don't have to have the most expensive libraries.
Absolutely, man. That's some words of wisdom right there.
Yeah.
It's about the ear, not the gear. And
Yeah, there you go.
It's true. Super true.
Gear does help though.
Gear and money does help.
Yeah.
I will admit. But to make a good product, good music, you don't need to have it. You know?
Right.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, those are just those little hits right there. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Some little hits. I think it's the same thing. Higher, pitched up.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is the riff of the chorus, and the riff was created by, I took a single sample. I had a horn sample, and then I had a synth sample, and I just chopped them up and stretched them and pulled them in all different directions, and I also reversed them in a bunch of ways. So that's what this is. It's nothing special. It's just 2 audio samples and then just copy and pasted and pitched up and pitched down to make what the riff is now. Like that's, I wanted it to sound very much, I want to say like a printing, like an old printer, like a jan, kind of, I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, I know the printer you're talking
Yeah,
about.
you know, like an old printer, but I also wanted to sound organic with Max and I playing over the top of it, where we're not nearly that accurate. So you get this weird ebb and flow of incredibly precise with Max and I, especially me, just being sloppy and all over the place. So
Oh yeah.
Could you have all those play together, please, Mike?
Yeah, let's do it. I think the original idea you guys had was to sound like a Titan meat suit.
A colossal meat titan.
Oh
Colossal
yeah,
meat
yeah.
Titan.
A colossal meat titan that basically a robot or an organic robot that's just massive. Man, this rhythm took us a long time to learn. Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
that was a rough one.
It's tasty, man. That's super tasty.
Yeah, that's don't ever want to do this ever again.
Man, I dig it.
Yeah.
I think I remember you saying that right as soon as you finished writing the song too. I don't ever want to write a song like this ever again.
Yeah, this one took me, just that riff took such a long time with the editing of cutting and pitching that it just took such a long time.
And plus, there's like several riffs that are all just like slightly different, and each
Yeah.
one has all these different variations, which is hard for writing, hard for playing and memorizing and all that stuff.
And I have to sing and play this at the same time, and the
Dude.
triplets are just such a bear to play. This is a hard song. But let's go to before we hop into the drums, let's just go to the bass, because that's not too complicated.
No, we could talk a little bit about the backstory too. So, what kind of bass are you playing here, Keith?
I'm playing a 5-string jazz bass.
Yeah,
It's a 34-inch scale length, which isn't the best B string. The B string's kind of floppy, and this entire EP used a lot of my low B on my jazz bass. So it got a great tone. You know, you can't ever go wrong with jazz pickups. And then we sent my bass into I had 2 12s. We had my bass go into my dark glass B7K pedal, into my amplifier, into the 2 12s, and then we had it go into another guitar head. What was it?
it was a PV Deuce from like the 80s or 70s or something. It was a really old head.
Yeah, this really old guitar head, which fed an 810 cabinet.
Yeah, it's an 810. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was an Ampeg 810. It just didn't have the mesh in the front.
Yeah.
So
And what mics did we use?
2 SM57s. Like
SM57s.
These 2 mics
Like
you see
these
right
bad
here.
boys.
I mean, I think it's like $100 microphone, but man, like it's super awesome for bass.
Yeah.
And that's all I used, man. Just mic them up around the cones, and voila. So here's how it sounds.
Oh, yeah.
Such a gnarly tone.
I wanted it to sound like a chainsaw, and Mike got it.
Yeah, I mean, just with your Gensler alone, it sounds pretty gnarly. Like, this is just the Keith's amp. Which is awesome already as it
Yeah.
is. It's really good in the low mids area. And then this is the PV Deuce, that really crazy high gain amp. I mean, that one is pretty gnarly.
So
So
it's pretty gnarly. And as you can hear from the very beginning of this take, I just completely messed up the riff right at the beginning. I'm just like, I'm so far behind and I'm all over the place, but we didn't want to stress about the actual hour playing because having that organic feel to it of we didn't want our parts to feel like they were to the grid because we want that yin and yang of machine and human working together kind of sound. Right. And it makes this wonderful, I don't know, this incredible mix of incredibly precise precision and my awful playing.
Well, it's like you said, the giant tech meat suit or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you guys tracked this, I was like really impressed because to me, it sounded like you guys were nailing it. And I know that Keith is a very humble guy and he'll be like, oh no, I'm the worst player ever. But dude, he's an absolute monster. And both of them together are a monster duo. So
it's true. It's not sloppy. Also, you can see it's like a super long takes.
Oh, yeah.
Just like the whole chorus.
I mean, we had to do a little bit of punching in. It wasn't a whole lot, but just a little bit. But I tried my best to not edit where it wasn't necessary. I would literally just not even follow the grid. I would just listen and hear if you and Keith were lined up together, because all that matters is if you guys are tight together. It doesn't matter if you're on the grid or not.
Yeah.
And that freedom of being off the grid gives you this kind of organic sound.
Right.
So, yeah.
Shall we move to the drums?
Let's do the drums.
Now, what drums did we use for this?
These are the kick drum is a sonar kick. It's some green sonar kick. I don't know exactly.
But what were the dimensions?
Was it probably a 20 by 20?
No, it was a 22.
22?
I think it was a 22 by 20.
Okay.
Kick drum. Snare, I think, was a 14 by 6.
Either 6 or 6.5.
6 or 6.5. There was a metal pork pie.
Yeah, kind of like almost like a Black Beauty kind of sound.
Yeah. It almost looked like a Black Beauty.
And then some like huge power toms from like the 80s by Pearl, like Pearl Pearl Recording or some kind of like old discontinued line by them, and they were like, I don't know, they were just way too big. They looked like huge tubs.
I think it was like a 14 or no 12, 14, and 16.
I think that was it. Yeah,
12, 14,
like
16,
and
then
super deep.
And then later on in this track, there's actually an overdub of an 18-inch floor tom that had all the lacquer and all the wrapping stripped from it, so it had a really open, resonant sound. And that was actually a really cool sounding tom that we added later on.
But the snare Max started off recording was that big brass one.
It was a bell brass, just like 45 pounds, super heavy. I don't even remember really what it sounded like, to be honest with you. I just liked the fact that it weighed so much. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that brass drum was like, the stand could barely hold it, man. It was so freaking...
Yeah, that was super heavy.
What happened to it? Did you...
I broke the bottom head, I think. I was really slamming the drums, obviously, and I think we tracked like, I think 90% of the first song or something like that, or at least that first song, and then the bottom head broke, and then we put on another bottom head, but it was like, some ancient head that was kind of irreplaceable. So we couldn't get the same sound, and then so we just retracked the song with a new snare drum, and it sounded better. So we went with something else.
But what was funny is that Max's kick kept sliding out away from him, and so we were trying to put all this stuff in front of the kick so that way it would stop sliding away from him, and finally we got that massive bell brass snare, which is like 100 pounds, and put it in front of the kick and it finally stopped moving.
Oh yeah. That was like the only thing that worked. We tried everything. We tried so many stands and sandbags and weights.
We put like a giant rock in there. I think alone weighed like 20 pounds, and then a brick. And we put sandbags, and it still was like in front of it, and it still was moving. And then we put that bell brass snare, and it was like perfect.
I was just really trying to beat the crap out of the drums. I was playing so hard. By the end of the day, my hands were bleeding, and my calluses were all ripped off. It was great.
Yeah.
And the all the stands, I remember during the takes, the stands that were holding the cymbals kept on like sliding and loosening. I remember that was a problem. Yeah. And I was like trying to figure out like, how do I do this? Because I wanted to capture that performance. It's an awesome performance. like a lot of energy, a lot of emotion, and I didn't want to have him play quieter to hurt the performance. So I mean, as an engineer, you have to adapt too. Like I knew that he was gonna have a shitload of cymbal bleed in the tom mics, just because it's kind of hard to avoid that. And I mean, I tried my best, trying to position them in a certain way, try to raise the cymbals a little bit higher to get rid of some of the bleed, but it's inevitable, especially for playing music that loud. So I was just planning ahead, like, all right, I'm just gonna clean these toms up. I'm gonna, cut all up, call them out. Cut all of the bleed out. I even did a couple of replacements hits of the toms, which we'll get into further. But
yeah, let's listen to the drums.
Oh no, can't do that. Push this.
Dang, what is that? One take? Wait, no, it's no, that's two.
Well, we played through the whole part, and then Max really wanted to nail that fill in the end, especially.
Oh yeah.
Let's just play that fill again. That's an awesome fill. Oh, it's like super pocket fill too. It's not just like a, like your standard, like Behemoth blast beat. Nothing wrong with Behemoth.
God bless him.
But it's not that at all. It's powerful, and it's like super musical at the same time.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy with the tones we got on these drums too. You did so good at
Thanks,
just making a huge sounding kit, but not like unrealistically huge. I still feel that it's like that's kind of what it sounded like in the room, basically. It sounds so accurate, but so huge and so punchy. It's perfect.
Thanks, man. Thanks. The funny thing is, though, is like all that room sound is actually not from the room that the drums were recorded in. The room I created through some various plugins with reverbs, and I actually created a separate track called the Fake Room, and this has some processing on it, as you can see, just like adding some high end, compressing it, and a little bit of like high end sizzle in the end.
Can we hear that soloed out, like that fake room sound?
Yeah. It sounds like a room to me.
For sure.
And it's not. It's literally just a separate bus that I made that I'm sending the various microphones to. And then putting some reverb on it and some processing, and then voila, it sounds like a natural room. So that's a cool trick that you can do if you don't have a big room, because a lot of people are recording in small rooms nowadays, right? They're not going to big studios anymore because it's kind of, expensive, and especially during this, pandemic, man, it's just like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk about the snare, okay? So, this snare had a little bit of work I put into it specifically.
More than a little, I think.
A bit. So the snare itself was gated. I'll just solo that.
That kick sounds hilarious through the bleed.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's coming from the reverb, from like the Fake Room and a couple of things you're hearing, but yeah, it does sound funny like that though. So the snare itself, all the powerful hits are on a separate track, and then all the ghost notes that he does, because he does a lot of ghost notes, are on this track, as you can see here, and they're throughout, not constantly, but there's enough to make a significant difference in the sound. So if I just solo the ghost notes, it sounds like this. Here. I mean,
Sounds bizarre.
It sounds bizarre on its own, right? But when you put it in the mix, tell that it's like an actual snare hit that I compressed super hard and added a lot of processing to, because in the mix it fits, right? And it sounds like a ghost note, like a really audible ghost note. So what that process was literally just me going through the actual snare track, finding all the ghost notes, and then basically just cutting them and putting them on this other track here.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't believe how natural it sounds in the full mix compared to how strange it sounds isolated.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing is when you listen to things solo, it's gonna sound weird, but always check the mix. But first and foremost, before you make any decisions, check it in the mix. If it works in the mix, it works. Actually, I was noticing in the other bass track, there was like, I think I missed a crossfade, okay? But, it's like a really simple thing to miss, but like in the mix, I didn't hear it at all. So it just goes to show you, like, as long as it sounds kind of the mix, it's okay.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the samples?
Yeah, let's briefly talk about the samples. We'll go into that.
Okay, cool. So for the samples, we used Chris Lord Alge's pack from the Slate drums. Well, this is what the drum sounds like without samples. And it already sounds. I mean, I added a lot of processing, but
that's just the kick drum solo.
That's just the first mic, the kick.
Oh, okay, just one kick mic. Yeah.
That's just that one. This is the kick out. Boom.
Just like low sounds.
Yeah. Basically, we used a sub kick. Well, it's not really a sub kick, but it's a Yamaha NS10 speaker that was rewired so that the positive is now on the negative and the negative is in the positive. And what that does is it's basically a microphone, because essentially what a speaker is the opposite of a microphone. They are both transducers. So when you flip the polarity on the speaker, it's going to really grab all the low frequencies just because of the way that a speaker is built. It's built to be able to push low frequencies. So it works great as a sub. And then this is the sample. And actually, the sample itself sounds pretty natural too. I mean, you could tell it's definitely a sample, but like I made sure to add some more varied velocities within the sample, so it still feels natural and not like it's a super clicky death metal sounding thing, right? Yeah, so that's the kick and the snare.
Zoom all the way over there. How long is this track? 4:30?
I thought it was longer. Could be 4:30, but I thought it was closer to like 6.
Let's see.
We should know that.
I'll look real quick. It's like almost 6 minutes long.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That was a long song.
Like 5:40 something, maybe, yeah. Awesome part, man. I mean,
the processing you put on my voice with the, what is it, the reverse tail, or no, not the reverse, the delay.
The H delay, I think, is the plugin.
H delay.
There's a couple of different delays and different effects on this. We'll talk about that real quick. Yeah, so aside from all the regular processing I did on the vocal that you've already seen, we have all these different effects, right? So for the regular verb, we're going through this, which is like the Brainworks reverb. It's like a cool plugin. So that's the first one. No, that's mouse. Then the H delay here.
Withhold the soul denied away to let you go, and I know the rising
Another H delay.
It's
It's just another different. It's like a different reverb or delay time, I should say.
And I try
And this
to
thing.
leave it all behind and keep it.
So this right here is actually GTR's pedal plugin, and I use this all the time on any other instrument, not just guitars.
Lady.
The lady, which means delay backwards because it's a reverse delay.
Oh my god. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it's dude, it's genius. But like, no, this plugin is cool. It's subtle for this part. It's not really noticeable, but you can hear it. The tiny little things that pop out in the back, like when Keith says a word, it kind of sounds like, you know, or like.
Withhold the soul denied away to let you go.
It kind of sounds like unintelligible in the background, which is what we wanted, just a little bit of extra space. And then this little vibrato thing, which is just adding a little bit more modulation. In this one, this is another effect that's just kind of messing up the sound in general and just, you know, make a little subtle change there. But yeah, and then Keith with his super sexy voice.
Go. Let's talk about that the piano,
Oh yeah.
because you did a lot there. That was all Mike, because what we wanted for the intro of the bridge was a very lo-fi sounding piano, and yeah, he just whipped it up super quick.
Yeah, I think I knew what they were going for initially with this sound. Like, it just kind of came to me, right? And let's see. Where's the thing? I'll just play it. So that little messed up thing is this plugin right here. And I'll play it one more time. Without it.
It's just a boring old piano.
I mean, it still sounds cool, but this definitely adds a little edge to it, right?
Yeah, it's a totally different character. It's really cool.
Yeah. And if you don't know, this is actually a free plugin.
All right.
Yeah.
Shout out to
now.
Isotope Vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I use this a lot in certain situations like that. And basically, what is it, like 9 Inch Nails, closer kind of ending sound, right?
Oh yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
Trent Reznor.
Very Trent Reznor, but I mean, I think it worked really well for this part. Yeah. And then, what's next?
Let's go to the big bridge.
Big Bridge.
All the hits.
Oh, yeah. Gnarliness. Let's just play it quick. Huge, man.
These hits are where we used that massive tom. So Max played through everything, and then we went back, and he just stood in the middle of the live room with that massive tom and did all the hits.
Yeah.
And then we threw him in there, and that tom sounded massive.
It did.
Yeah, it really did.
I used the butt end of the stick and just slammed it and dented the heck out of the head. It was definitely unusable after that.
This is what it sounded like. And I also, you could hear it, but I also added that same sub kick, and I just put it right next to the bottom of the huge floor tom, and it adds just a little extra low end, and combined you get that huge sound. Yep. The second part of the bridge.
Yeah, let's go to the second part of the bridge. This new difficult rhythm.
Yeah.
I forgot about that riff.
Yeah.
So now on My Voice, you had to do my screams on a different track.
Yes. So for the soft ones, when he's talking like this, really close to the mic, I process that differently just because it's a different sounding instrument, right? If you go through and you compress at a certain level like this, and it sounds really nice and in your face, and all of a sudden you're like that, then you're getting some distortion there, and it's going to affect the whole signal chain a little differently, right? So for that part, actually, let's go to the end, because that's where a lot of the cool screaming stuff happens. The end of this bridge before the last one. Nice.
Oh, high notes.
Yeah, I mean, he was screaming really loud when he did it.
Yeah, I'm not a quiet singer. Oh man,
It was cool though. So basically, the only difference I did for the screaming tracks was added even more distortion on Keith's voice, and people think, oh, distortion, it's what is that? That's for like guitars, right? But no, man, like we actually like hearing distortion. We like hearing extra harmonics in sound. It just creates like added, like it's kind of like fat. We like eating fat on like everything.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. So this is kind of like the fat that I like to add to make it taste a little bit better. But here's without the distortion. And then with it, it's a little, you'll hear a little bump.
subtle.
Subtle. I'll A-B it right here. It's just a little extra grit. Just a little bit to help push it over the edge. Because, I mean, I already tracked him through that distressor, like I said, and that is notorious for adding a lot of harmonics.
Yeah.
Which is what I wanted. So.
And when we record, we did all of our recording in 2 days. Yeah. And we did most of it in 1 day. And also, I did all the vocals and all the bass in 1 day. By the time I was singing, I was so spent. And I don't know how I managed to get through all these songs, but I just remember being in that vocal booth for such a long time. And oh man, I barely made it out of there.
There's no AC in that vocal booth either because we don't want to get that in the microphone.
I think for this whole session there was no AC period. For some reason, I think the AC was just like, instead of giving us nice cool air, it was like pouring water into the control room.
It was broken. It was so hot.
And because of COVID regulations, we weren't really allowed to be in the control room, so we were in the live room the whole time for the most part, or outside. And of course, it was August, so it was brutally hot. It was mosquitoes out there. It was like,
oh man, it was mosquitoes, dude. That's another story on itself.
Yeah.
I think the first day we got there, I didn't expect this to happen, but it was already so hot in the back. All the mosquitoes were just kind of chilling by the sink. There's a lot of water in the sink, right? I remember the next day, you guys like brought like bug spray and like all this.
Oh yeah, like citronella candles and whatever we could do to ward them off.
Oh,
you guys
we
were
were getting eaten alive.
You guys were getting nailed out there with
Yeah.
mosquitoes. So, but it's a testament to show the guys are dedicated. Like these guys don't joke around.
I mean, you can hear the pain in the music. That's for sure.
Yeah. That what you hear in Keith's voice is mosquito bites
Yeah, that's just misery.
and high humidity.
Let's see. Let's play through this last thingy. You really hear the tail of that reverb and delay in the end. It's nice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really nice.
Man, what a monster track.
I think this took us the longest to learn. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe even longer than Fall Away, which has probably more going on, but just is a little bit easier in terms of rhythm.
Yeah, this one took quite some time. I
mean,
just remember those first days in the studio, in our tiny little studio, when Max and I were learning it 80% slower. Oh, it was so brutal.
Yeah.
And then that was just learning the rhythm. That wasn't even putting things together and playing it together. It was, this was a hard track. Did we miss anything? Is there anything else we want to go over? Because I do believe that's everything.
Yeah. I'm not gonna talk about all the other stuff that doesn't matter. So.
I mean, obviously, there's a million billion layers, but
Oh yeah.
most
I
of
mean,
them are not quite as interesting as guitar.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bass, drums, vocals,
Right.
whatever
Max.
Keith plays.
Yeah. I mean,
It's just EQ. I think that goes on most of them, right? And
yeah, EQ, compression,
And I mean,
and
we could
all
have
that good stuff.
Mike really could have dove into the weeds with this because he did a lot. He put so much into this track that we haven't. This is exactly like an iceberg, and we only hit the tip of
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
it goes much further underwater than I know. So
sure. At least as much work that Keith and I put into learning and playing the song, Mike put into mixing it and engineering it.
Yeah.
It took a Herculean effort, no doubt about it.
Yeah, but it's worth it, man. I mean, this was definitely like a serious mix because you guys had so many elements, you know. Even though it's only Max and Keith playing drums and bass, all of the synths, all of the different sampled instruments that you guys have, your bass tone is super gnarly. Like the drums needed to be really huge still.
Yeah.
The vocals, they needed to be in your face. All those factors considering, it made it a pretty lengthy mix, and I'm super happy that I got to be able to work with these guys because they're gems, man.
The feeling is mutual. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
true.
absolutely mutual. I mean, you put so
100%.
much work into every single song, Mike. We really appreciate all of your hard work.
Of course,
Truly.
man. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, if there's nothing else we want to go and look over, I think that's about it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
everything in the track.
Yeah, right on. Cool.
Yeah.
This is once again, this is Mike Ramirez. If you want him to mix your music, he did a fantastic job for us. Couldn't recommend him highly enough.
Yeah. Out of the hobby shop in Highland Park, that's where I engineer. So if you needed like a session to record or anything like that, or mixing or anything like that, producing, like I'm always open and
He
I
kills
love
it.
doing
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Well, again, thanks for sitting down with us, Mike. Thanks for breaking down this session, and thanks for being a part of our musical journey as Bantamweight. So,
Of course, I'm stoked.
yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you made it this far, we appreciate the heck out of you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to us break down this song. And once again, my name is Keith,
My name is Max.
I'm Mike.
and enjoy the rest of your day. Let's go get something to eat.